Hi peeps, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to discuss making magical tools. So if you're interested in that, have a seat, settle in, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, hit the bell so you get notified when I have new videos out, and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Helps me with the algorithms. So settle in and we'll get started here in just a moment. So yeah, talking today about making magical tools. Recently, I had a question from a woman named Melissa. She asks, do you make your own wands or do you buy them and add on to them? I'm in the process of making two, one of fallen oak limb and one cherry. I make my own wands from start to finish. I have never bought a wand in my life. Actually, no, that's not true. I bought two wands years ago, and they worked really well for a while, but then I needed to start making my own. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I make a wand today. I'm going to show you a finished wand and tell you how it got to that state. First, you need to decide what's the wand for, what kind of energy. Do you want a general energy wand? All mine are correlated to the gods and goddesses I work with. So the wand today that I'm showing you, I made for the goddess Bridget. If you're making a elemental specific wand, like water, earth, air, fire, ice, then you would probably really want to research out what woods correspond to those elements. Like willow is really good for water. Oak would be good for earth. I would use hawthorn for fire or rowan for fire. So first you need to decide your intent with the wand, the energy you want to raise with it. Match the wood to that. Or do you want to make a wand out of metal? And if so, what kind of metal? Silver. Very good for goddess wands. Copper is an excellent amplifier of energy. And if you're going to make a metal wand, you need to decide, do you have the skills to use the tools you will need on that? Now for me, with wood, which is, I make all my wands out of wood, I often use a wood burner, and I use sandpaper, and I use carving sets, and I use those to strip the bark. Now, I will say one thing about stripping bark. If you are making a wand and the wood has hardened up for a while, if it's older, you're going to have a hard time taking the bark off most wood. It's going to be a challenge. And I would almost get a professional, I think it would be like a lathe or something to scrape the bark off. Because, as I said, I've used carving tools to take the bark off before, and it can work when the wood is very wet still, but when the wood is dry, it's much more difficult. And my hands, I have tendonitis, so I have a hard time anymore with work like that. So make sure you have the tools you need, sandpaper, something to strip the bark, unless you're going to leave the bark on. You will want maybe a wood burner, some carving tools, glue, and I find it best to use a glue that is made for wood. Make sure it says it works on wood. And then you want to decide what you're going to put on it. So I will often sit with the wood a while. I'll show you the piece. This is a wand I made for Bridget. And this end is citrine, and this end, actually both ends are citrine. You notice I have some stones on here, and I'll go through what those are. And I have it wrapped with wire, and I've got some green leather down here, and I've got, if you look closely, that is a garnet strand necklace wrapped around. And I'll show you some of the other things too. But you can tell the wood under here is diamond willow. And I like working with diamond willow. I like the feel of it. I resonate with it. And I order my wood off eBay if I have to. I know that sounds odd, but I've had I've had people ship me 6-foot tall pieces of wood before. And I'm sure the postman probably thinks I'm kind of crazy because I've had him ship me antlers too. But eBay is a wonderful place to find wood and antlers. So I first stripped all the bark off of here, and the piece of willow was fairly dry, so it took a while to strip this bark off. It took me a long time actually. And I do it in sessions, and I try not to rush myself, because anytime you try to rush a magical project, you're going to rush the energy and possibly mess it up. So the first thing I did was I stripped the bark off, and it left lovely patterns. I really love the patterns that it left. Then I sat with the wood, and I meditated on it for a while. And I thought, what do you need? What do you need? And I meditated on, the goddess, Bridget. And I was like, what do you want on your wand? Well, I got a clear picture of some of the stones. She wanted citrine, she wanted peridot, she wanted garnets. She wanted, what else did she want here? There's some others that she wanted. But a lot of citrine and garnets I noticed. And there was some smoky quartz that she wanted too. So I also asked, what else do you want on there? And I got the image of green leather. I was like, do you want some sort of fur? Because I put some fur on some of my wands. And what kind depends on the god or goddess I'm working with. Like one I've got rabbit fur on it. But I have these shimmering beetle wings, and she wanted some of those. I got those off eBay too, and that's their natural shimmer, and she just wanted a few of those on there. And she wanted the symbol of a butterfly. So I looked through, I had earrings that I wasn't wearing, and they were butterfly, and it was like, that'll work. A earring will work. And for the peridot, I looked through my stash, and I had a couple peridot earrings that I wasn't wearing. And I was like, okay, one of those will work. And then I have a whole bunch of, actually two of those, because I've got one up here and one down here. I have a whole bunch of loose stones that I've accumulated over the years. So I went in and I looked through and I picked them out based on what I felt pulled to. I paid attention, what do I feel pulled to put on this wand? And so once I had the stones that I knew needed to go on the wand, I then asked, okay, what kind of wire do you want it? And I got the word copper. I got the image of copper because of her work with fire, and copper felt like it made sense. So I bought some, I didn't have any at the time, so I bought some copper beading wire, and I made sure it was actual copper wire. And after that, it was a matter of getting the wand ready. So I had my stripped piece of wood. I needed to hollow out holes in the end for the crystals on both ends. So basically I took the crystal spikes I knew were going on the end, and I drew around them on the end so I knew approximately how big around they were. And I started using carving tools to carve those out. Now you could use a drill too, but I didn't feel comfortable with a drill at that point. But I used a carving tool to carve out the end of both ends of the wand, and I kept fitting the crystal in there to see where it went. And finally, when it felt like it was deep enough, that was fine. Before I ever put those crystals in though, I looked around for where the gems wanted to be placed. Like I've got a bunch of gems here, along here, and so I drew little circles around there, and I hollowed that out a little bit so the gem had a place to rest in. And like here too, this is citrine. And so then I carved out all the places where I felt the gems wanted to go. And once everything was carved, then I glued the crystals in the ends, and I glued the crystals on one side, and I held it in a vise so that it wouldn't move. Let it set up for 2 to 3 days. Then I turned it, and any crystals that went on this side, I put in another 2 or 3 days. And so it took 4 turns to get all the crystals down, because that way they didn't drop off when you turned it. You know, it's like they were fully solid on one side by the time I was ready to turn it. So once I had the crystals set onto the wand, then I put on the leather, the green leather. And I knew just from feeling it that she wanted it on one end to where you hold it, and then up near the top, but not fully at the top. So I glued the leather on, and again, I let it set. That's the key to making a lot of tools and masks, giving it enough time for the glue to set up. Once the leather was set, then I glued on the peridot, and again, let it set. Once that was set, I wrapped the garnet strands around this end, let it set. And I notice I also have like a gold necklace in here. It's just a very small, like 10 karat gold chain, but she wanted some gold on there, so I put that on there. And again, once those were set, and it took a while for those because the strands took longer to stay in place than the gems. Then I began to do the wire wrapping. And all of this is one strand of wire pretty much. There were places where it would break, where I would have to like wind it together. But for the most part, I tried to make it a continuous strand as much as I could. Copper is an amplifier. I love working with copper and using copper in magic. So the image I kept getting was heavy on the copper on top, heavy on the copper on the bottom, so that when your hand goes across it, the energy from your hand goes through the wand. And I made sure when I was wrapping wire that I wrapped around like the necklaces or the earrings and over some of the bigger gems. And, you know, there were places where I did glue the copper wiring down. Just added some glue to hold it steady and firm. And once the copper wire was on, then I put on the finishing touches. I put on the butterfly earring. I put on the beetle wings. There. And after that was done, she wanted some black cord wrapped around it, so I added that. And then, basically, I charged it. I let it fully set up after the last piece went on it. And when I was done, I cast a circle. I called the Lady Bridget into circle, and I charged the wand. So, yeah, this is, my wands are often almost like clubs, you know. But this is Bridget's wand, and it's extremely powerful. I also rubbed the wood with oil, and you can use essential oils, or you can use something like olive oil or anything like that. So I rubbed the wand with oil before I put anything else on. Now I have to say, I think my wands are beautiful. You know, for me they are. They will never look like some of the professionally made wands, but any magical tool that you make yourself is going to be much more powerful than a tool you buy. Once in a while you may find something that is just astounding that you buy. I have, and I have bought them. But for the most part, when you make the wand or whatever tool you're making yourself, the energy that goes into it is so attuned to you that you don't have to worry about cleansing it when you buy it. You don't have to worry about hoping that you will mesh with the energy of the tool. Now, I would never try to make a dagger. I'm not that good. I can't do metalworking. You know, there are some tools I won't make. I won't make my own head circlets because I'm just very picky about how they look, and I'm not good enough with making tools to make a circlet. However, wands and my masks, I've done some magical paintings. Um, I will add like walking sticks, you know, staves. I've made staves. I make charms, things like that, and I'm much happier making them myself. That's one thing that I encourage people to do also is, as I said, I have a stash, huge stash of small, tiny gems. And I've gathered them over the years. And one place I've got them, you can buy necklaces of gem chips. And you can just cut them off the necklace, you know, cut open the necklace and put them in a jar, and you have dozens of, say, peridot chips to work with. So don't think it's too expensive to buy a lot of these. You can find some amazing deals on eBay, amazing deals at some gem stores. I tend to not buy at some of the crystal stores locally because the markup is really incredibly high, and frankly, I do such a quality or quantity of work that I need to make sure I'm not spending $1,000 on a wand. You know, it's like I would say this wand probably totally cost me a total of maybe $35, $40. Whereas if I were to buy something comparable, they would be selling it for $200 to $300. Well, yeah, the labor involved is intense. They deserve that for the labor. But I would rather put my own energy into it and make it myself. So if you have any questions about making tools or what kind of tools you might make or how you might go about it, feel free to put them in the comments and I can address them in future videos. As I said, I talked to the wood, I listened to it, I held it, I closed my eyes, I asked, what do you want on your wand? What energy do you want in the wand? And I was asking the goddess Bridget because that's who I was making the wand for. If you're making it for a general energy, what I would do is go, say this were a fire wand, just for example. I would sit there with the wood and I'd be like, what gems, what elements do I need to bring out the fire energy from this wand? What does it need? What do I need to use? And I would listen and jot down notes of pictures I got in my head. And it's amazing what your subconscious will tell you if you just ask and then give it the time to answer. And sometimes you won't get that answer right away. Sometimes it'll take several days. Sometimes it'll take a week of sitting there every day for a while with your piece of willow or piece of oak and meditating on it. Give it the time it needs. Don't think it's not working because you don't get the answers right away. Magic is a lifelong pursuit. It is a journey. It is not an end. I have been doing this 40 years. I've been in the craft for over 40 years now, and I am still learning and still advancing. This is not something where you're going to be an expert in 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years. And so we're constant students. We constantly learn. We constantly learn new ways to do things. And at some point, this wand may no longer serve its purpose, at which point I will take it apart and give it back to the earth and make a new one. That's okay. Sometimes tools outlive their usefulness, and then you just gently give them back to the mother. And you will know when that happens because it will feel almost dead. It'll feel empty. And when it does, then it's just time to give it back and let it rest and make something new. So don't worry about if someday suddenly your wand just goes, oh, I'm tired. It's okay. It's just time to make a new one. All things are ephemeral. All things have a lifespan, and that includes magical tools as well. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it's been helpful. If you have questions, put them below. If they're easy enough, I'll just answer them there. If they require more time, I'll do them in another video. I want you to have a lovely weekend. Have a magical week to come, and bright blessings, and take care, and may the gods be with you.